Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here to do my wrap up for February. I'm going to go over my stats and my top books for the month. It was definitely a great month reading wise from quality. I had some amazing books, so I'm so excited to get started. Let's go ahead and start with my February wrap up. Okay guys, so February was actually what I said before. It was a great month quality wise, maybe not quantity wise, because I definitely didn't read as much as I expected and wanted to. I don't know, February was kind of an off month for me. I felt like things were just not going my way, life wise, not feeling great. I had some migraines. I have my teeth pain again and stuff going on like that. So it's just, I don't know. It took me longer to get through certain books. So I didn't read as much as I wanted to, but honestly, I'm not too upset about it. I'm hoping I'll do better in March. I just decided to join that Realmathon thing. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. I didn't change around my TBR to like fit the realm thing, but like, you could read anything and it fits a lot of these tropes. So, but I thought I would join it because I just like talking with other, book people in the community on the Discord. And also because, it'll maybe push me to read a little bit more because I get a little competitive. So if you're interested in that, you should definitely go check that out. I know Jen from the Book Refuge is one of the team leads for the Monarch. So I joined her team. Anyways, enough of that. So let's just go over my stats first for February, real quickly. I know some of you probably don't really care, but for February, I read 26 books. So that's less than I wanted to. I always want to at least try for a book a day. So I didn't fully hit that, but it's okay. And then I read 9,727 pages. And I mean, honestly, like that was pretty decent for the amount of books I read. One of them was the Outlander book, which was my most pages read this month. Definitely. So that did take me almost like 5 days to finish that book this time. So that was kind of a delay in my reading too. So my ratings, this is what I mean about quality. I had 3 6-star books, which just blows me away. Like, I can't believe I had 3 and I wasn't just handing these out or being gushy towards specific authors. I do love specific authors, certainly, but these ones I just adored. So I had to give them 6 stars. I had 8 5-stars, 1 4.5 star, 11 4 stars, 1 3.5 star, 1 2.5 star, and then 1 1.5 star. And I don't really count it as my books read, but I did have a DNF. I made it 50% through that book, but I don't think I even counted that page count towards my thing. Whatever. But and then the types that I read 2 alien romances, 10 contemporary, 2 mafia, 6 historical, which is great because I want to try and read between 5 to 6 each month so that I'm hitting my goal of reading more historical romance through the year. So definitely great that I got through 6 in like the shortest month. And then I had 3 dark romances and then 3 paranormal. So pretty good. Always more contemporary than anything, but definitely read some different things. The formats that I read in, I had 4 ALCs, 3 arcs. So that's really good for me. I usually request way too many arcs and ALCs, and I gave myself a good break in February. So that was kind of nice, not constantly having to stress out about getting reviews up and posts up and stuff. And then I had 12 audiobooks and 7 ebooks. So you can see like the primary stuff that mostly what I read was audiobooks. Like I was having a hard time physically reading this month. It just was. So those are my stats. I had a decent month for what it was. I'm happy with it because of the 6 stars. Honestly, I'm just so excited that I read so many good books. Okay, so we're going to talk about my top books. Obviously, I'm going to have my 3 6 stars. So I had to narrow it down to, out of the 8 5 stars, a couple. So that's always kind of tough. Sometimes I always just want to do my 3, like whatever 6 stars I have, and then a separate top 5 out of the 5 stars, but whatever. I don't want that long of a video, you guys. So anyways, we're going to go over my top books for the month. So I don't have a physical copy of this book yet, so I need to definitely get one soon. But probably my favorite book of the month was When Hearts Awaken by Victoria Lum. Now, if you are interested, this ended up being our buddy read. I had an ARC for it because I'm on her ARC team. But this did end up being our buddy read for the month, and we have a whole live show where we discussed everything. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. I'll try to link it down below and put it up in the cards for you. Go check out our live show if you want to see our thoughts. Anyways, so this one just blew me away. This is a romance between Charles Vaughn and Taylor. And Taylor was just discovered that she's part of the Andersons. So if you've read this series, you know the Anderson family. They're a powerful family. But she grew up poor. She's a ballerina. She's kind of like this gothic, grumpy, ballerina. But it's because she has been through a huge trauma. And there's a lot of trigger warnings for this book. For sexual assault and PTSD, self-harm, all that kind of stuff. But Taylor has been through a very traumatic event. She was drugged and raped. And she was raped by a group of guys. I think only one of them ended up doing it. But nobody really believed her. She didn't really tell her family, though, but the authorities didn't listen to her because she didn't have a good look of them because she was drugged. And so she has a lot of trauma around sex and all of that. And she has been doing self-harm, like giving herself pain, because one of the most traumatic things is the guy did get her off when he assaulted her. And so she felt like betrayed by her body, that body betrayal feeling of like, she got off. So she never wants, she literally has piercings down there to pinch and like hurt herself with. So I'm telling you, it's heavy. It's got a lot of trigger warnings. But I think Victoria Lum did this in such a responsible way. I brought up more in the live show, but I do have experience with this, and I think a lot of women do. And so I really connected to Taylor's journey and everything that she goes through and how strong she is, but she also has to deal with, PTSD and the stressors that come up into her life. And so I just really loved this book because I think it was really moving on a personal level. I think that's why it meant more to me than maybe the other people in the buddy read, because I just connected to her journey and it broke my heart and I could relate. And I think it's important that we tell those stories because so many women have been victims to sexual assault. It's just heartbreaking, and it's astounding how many suffer this on a daily basis. So sorry to make this heavy, but this book really told an amazing story for Taylor, and I just loved her character and how much she grew and like opened herself up. Okay, so otherwise, off that heavy part of the book, the romance was amazing because this is between Charles Vaughn and Taylor. And Charles Vaughn is a billionaire businessman. He's very high up, but his company is in hot water because one of I think it was like the COO. I can't remember. I think he was the one that got accused of sexual assault type of charges. And so they really need to do something PR-wise for his company. And so he ends up kind of sponsoring her ballet company for the Black Swan, ballet. And so now him and Taylor are coming in contact more. His uncle is actually going to be the choreographer of it, and that leads to a lot of issues because Taylor thinks that he may have been one of the men that attacked her that night, but she doesn't know for sure because she can't remember the face. But so that adds a lot of issues between them too. But they like kind of hated each other because they had bad first impressions of each other. But once they start hanging out and they get to know each other more and he finds out about what happened to her, you know, they really come together, and it was just very swoony. I loved how much he like wooed her and like got to know the real her, and he would like send her daily messages about why he loves her or was into her. He would send her roses with thorns because she wanted the ones with thorns because that's who she is. You know, she's got thorns, she's got damage, she's scarred. You know, so I don't know. It was just so swoon worthy. I really love Charles. He ended up being like a new book boyfriend for me. I really loved their romance. So, you know, again, I have trigger warnings listed here. Previous essay, attempted essay, PTSD, panic attacks, self-harm, all of that. So just be prepared that when you do pick this up, and I hope you do, it does have a lot of triggering content, but the story and the journey is emotional, and it's very well told, and it's very sensitive to somebody who may have experienced that before. So I just continue to be blown away by Victoria Lum's writing. I think she only wrote another series before this, so I think she's only been writing for a couple years. And she's so nice. She's like reached out to me on Instagram, and, you know, she actually wanted feedback from like our live show. She's just amazing to her fans. And, you know, she's getting better with each book that she writes. So I just continue to be impressed with her writing, because you wouldn't expect like a billionaire romance to have the emotions that she brings to it. So I loved it. I gave it 6 stars. I think it was like 3.5 chilies. Or 3 chilies. It was amazing. I love it when like Charles Vaughn like has sex with her and he was like, "This is your first time." And it's just like, ooh. Anyways, loved it. I hope that you guys will check out that book. Okay, so the other one that I have is Sweet Prison by Neva Altaj. This is the 10th book in the Perfectly Imperfect series. This one blew me away. It was so angsty, so slow burn. I loved the character growth. I just loved it. It's my favorite one in the series. And Neva Altaj is another one that like has continued to improve with each book in that series. Each time I think this is my favorite, and then the next one comes out and it's my favorite. So I really love this one. This was the first 6-star that I've given to one in that series though. So it's definitely my fave. And this is between Massimo and Zahara. And this is a step-siblings romance. It's not too taboo though, because Massimo went to prison when she was like 3. So they were never really around each other or watch her grow up or anything like that. He went to prison for, I think, 18 years, 18, 20 years, it ended up being, for killing the man that killed his stepbrother, which was their brother. And he like killed him pretty publicly, but they had the judge in their pocket, so they expected him not to go that long, but the judge went against them. So he kind of knows something shady is going on. But he's actually running the Cosa Nostra behind the scenes from prison, and her father, which is his stepfather, is running it in like image. So everyone thinks her father's running it, but it's really Massimo. And so one time she actually writes him a letter for this like class assignment, and she was like a kid at the time, so it wasn't really anything, but she would just tell him random stuff and keep writing him these letters. But then he got like an inside look to like what's going on in the home and with something she brought up with her father. And so he kind of realizes he has this perfect source to spy on her father and see what's going on behind the scenes. And she doesn't get like, she wants to do it. She wants to help Massimo and whatever. So she does end up kind of being his spy. They write for years. Then when her father does pass away, he gets to go to the funeral. And she's 18 at this time. And when he sees her, he realizes how beautiful she is and how drawn to her he is. And he kind of freaks out. And so he actually is still going to be in prison for a few more years, but now their letters become a lot more intimate, and they really do fall in love with each other through the letters. So by the time that he is released and she actually moves in with him, you know, there's a lot of tension there. So they're in love. They're mutually pining after each other, but he won't go there because she's his stepsister. The mafia is very old-fashioned, and they would very look down on her if he was with his stepsister. And he just doesn't think he's good enough. And so it's a very like, you know, him trying to push himself away from her, but he can't stay away from her. And their banter, their sexual connection, like the pining, it was just next level fantastic. Like, oh my God, I love this book. So I can go on and on. And another book this week, we'll be talking about this book more, so stay tuned. But I freaking loved this so much. It was definitely a 6-star read. I love Massimo. I love Zahara. She becomes so strong in this book because she has a skin condition where it's I can't remember what it's called, but it's like patches of skin are lighter than the other patch of her skin color. And she was very bullied and felt self-conscious about that. But he just views her as so beautiful. He doesn't even see those as anything. And she really recognizes and finally like loves herself and how she looks and owns it by the end of this book. And I loved it. So that one was definitely fantastic. I do recommend that if you are coming into this, you should read book 9 first, which was Darkest Sins, I think it's called, which is her sister's book, because a lot of stuff that happens in there is like going on with this book too. So definitely read that one first. Okay, so the third 6-star that I had was The Prince of Broadway by Joanna Shupe. I am loving this series. This one is between Clayton Madden and Florence. And I just love a casino or gambling den owner. There's just something about it. Like when he's a casino owner and historical and he's like a self-made man, scarred, kind of damaged hero. I'm a sucker for it. I love it. So I definitely loved this hero. But this one had such a crazy setup because Florence actually wants to open up a gambling hall for women, because women weren't allowed to go to these, even though it is illegal, but the people just kind of, the authorities are kind of like in his pocket and look the other way. But she wants to open one for women. So she's kind of been sneaking into his place to kind of learn the ins and outs of it, trying to get his attention. So he does finally call her up to his office, and she basically asks him to teach her how to run a place like this. And she wants lessons from him. And I loved it because right off the bat, he's like, well, I'm sexually attracted to you. So like, I'm going to want, you know, to go after that too. So, and she's kind of shocked with how forward he was about that, but she's attracted to him too. I mean, he's not saying she has to do anything with him in exchange for the lessons, but he's just very honest and lets her know right off the bat. The other thing is he hates her father. He blames him for his family being kicked out of their home and put on the streets at a very young, when he was a kid. And so he has this long revenge plan against her father. And he literally tells her, I want vengeance and revenge on your father. So that's what I loved, is he told her straight up from the start. Again, later he does kind of keep something secret that isn't great, but they end up having such an amazing connection. The banter, these are very witty, funny kind of romances. I loved how strong the heroine is and how much she like wanted to fight for women. And didn't really want to get married. She wanted to run her own kind of life and be financially independent. And there was some really good spicy stuff in this too that just blew me away. I don't know why. I just was smiling this whole book. Like, I just loved it. I loved their connection. I love the way he like grovels for her at the end and like his big gesture. So I loved this book. So I ended up giving this one 6 stars. Okay, so another book that was a fave. These next two are going to be my 5-star books. But the next one that was a fave was Broken by the Horde King by Zoey Draven. This was the 4th book in the Horde King Drakar. What is that series called? Hold on. Horde Kings of Jakar. Anyways, it's the 4th book in that series. And I love this one. This one was very unique because we kind of had like a friends to lovers, childhood friends to lovers type of thing. Also kind of like a rejected mate type of thing feeling too. Because in this, we have Kieran and Maeve, and they were childhood friends. They actually grew up in this community that was like by the sea, and he was kind of like the prince of that community, but he eventually is going to go off and become like one of the biggest Horde King, kings. But they started out as friends. She was the only human in that village. Her adopted parents had like basically found her out in the woods nearby. And so they took her on. They raised her as their own daughter, but she always felt like outsider because in the community, because she's the only human. And she was like bullied for it and stuff. And so Kieran actually came to her rescue a couple times, and they just became fast friends. But as they grew up, she really started to fall in love with him. And so before he was going to be having to go out and become this Horde King, she actually did this thing that they do to like show their interest, the females. And she did it in front of everybody, and he rejected her. So she was devastated. And then they have a private meeting and everything, and he rejects her again. So she was completely heartbroken and just devastated by that because she was so in love with him. And then it's been 10 years and he has returned because he needs a healer. She's one of the healers at that home, and he needs a healer, so he wants her to come be with his horde. Really, he wants her back. He wants her to be his queen, but he has a lot to make up for because he demolished her heart, where she really closed herself off. She built up these really big walls and defenses. And so it's going to be really hard for him to break through those and get her. So if you love like mutual pining, a good grovel, slow burn, like this gives you it all. And I really loved it. I think it's the best in the series that I've read so far. And I really had a great time with it. I loved that they were like childhood friends and they just knew each other on such a deep level. You could really feel their connection. So fantastic read. We had given that one 5 stars. Okay, and the last one that I'm going to bring up is Loving Romeo by Laura Pavlov. Again, like I just talked about this in my weekly wrap up, so you may have already seen that. But so if you want more thoughts, definitely check out the weekly wrap up because I might not say as much here. But I am so shocked that I just found Laura Pavlov this last year, or in 2024, when I read the last couple books in the Magnolia Falls series. So I loved them so much that I wanted to go back to the beginning. So I read Loving Romeo, and that was book number 1. And I love Romeo. I love Romeo. We are all going to love Romeo. So Romeo is actually a fighter. He did some professional fighting very briefly, but things happened in his life with his father that he kind of had to step away. So he actually owns a gym and he helps train fighters in Magnolia Falls. There's a boxer that is talking a lot of smack and calling out Romeo and constantly all over social media, where he's constantly getting hounded to make him come back and fight him. And so he decides to do it. It's a big money. It's a big payday for him. And he kind of just wants to try and fight again. Obviously, this is kind of like a one and done. He's not going to keep fighting. But it is very dangerous. So he has to do severe like training to get trained, get fit and conditioned by the time of the fight. Then you have Demi, and she is actually the daughter of like a very powerful family. They're very high up, and it's also a family that Romeo hates. So they have a really bad start in the beginning of this book because she actually returns home from college and she opens up a coffee shop, little business, but it's right next to his gym. And he actually has to go in there a couple times for his mom and grandma like want her drinks, and they love her drinks and they're all friendly about it. But he's holding a grudge against her family, and so he's treating her like shit. And so that doesn't last long though. He feels really bad because once he gets to know her, he sees how amazing she is, and he was really judging her harshly and blaming her for something that her family did, because he actually went to jail for a few years for something he didn't do, and her family was the cause of that. So it added a lot of grief in his life. But they become really good friends. She goes over to his gym a bunch to train because she wants to learn to defend herself, because she does have somebody in her past that tried to assault her. So she wants protection. And so she's also helping him with his diet and everything. And they just become really good friends, but they have so much more than that. So it's really hard because he's trying to deny that. And his friends are all calling him on his bullshit. Like, you're into her, just go for it. So they eventually do get involved, but she's like, I want to know why you hate my family. Like, we're not doing anything until you tell me. So he does tell her, and that is what I loved about this book, was that she didn't blame him. She didn't doubt him. She immediately believed him, and she went and confronted her family. And when she sees how bad it is, she supports Romeo and stands by him. And I just love this couple. They were so sweet together. They were like ride or die for each other. Even though that's like the ride or die, I think, is like the thing him and his friends say too. I mean, there's an amazing group of friends in this Magnolia Falls books. So I just love it. Again, Beefcake is this kid that literally changed his name to Beefcake, and he was adorable. I loved him because the first book I read was actually his dad's romance. And so I loved him in that, and he just stole my heart in this too. So I loved it. This is such a great series if you want like small town contemporary sweet romances. It's so good. Like, I loved it. So I couldn't recommend this more. I loved all the fighting and training and all that stuff in this. There was no third act breakup. They are so strong together, and there's external conflicts, but they as a couple are beautiful. So I really, really loved that one. So I can't wait to continue with the rest of this series. Okay, so those were my top books from February. I'm going to briefly mention my worst books. And I had one DNF, and it was What's Left of Us by B. Celeste. If you want to hear all my thoughts on that, go back to that weekly wrap up. I think it was like the beginning of February, but I hated it. And I got 50% through the book, and I thought the hero was a scumbag. I thought he used the woman sexually and was verbally abusive and horrible in the sex scenes. And it's supposed to be a detective that got wounded on the job, and his friend died in the job, and he was married, and then now it's like he's going to therapy, and it's supposed to be like a second chance on his marriage, when literally the whole book is him not with her, using her for sex, and then flirting with his therapist the whole time, and then like running into her at the grocery store. And it's like, there's no like growth. I thought he would be going to therapy, working, realizing what he did wrong in the marriage and wanting to go back and work on it. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe he's not bad. It's this heroine was horrible, but she wasn't horrible from what I read so far. And I didn't want to read about him screwing her, not getting her off, and then kicking her out of his place. That's disgusting. So up to 15%, and then I saw like he was like flirting with the therapist. I was like, we're getting nowhere in this book, and I'm not wasting my time with it. So I ended up DNFing it, and that was an arc. So I basically had to just let them know I DNF'd it, and then I held like the review, but I hated it. And then I had Misconduct by Penelope Douglas. That ended up being, I think, my 1.5 star book. I hated it. I'm going to be having a vlog coming soon on that because it was a 12 rec from 12 friends. So I'm not going to go into too deep about why I hated it right now. Just know it was a big disappointment, and I don't know if Penelope Douglas is an author for me anymore. Maybe I've grown past that. I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like the same author that wrote Birthday Girl and stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. And then the other one I had was It Had to Be a Duke by Vivian Lorette, and it was my first time reading that. It was for the Rake Appreciation Society that Jen does, and I just didn't like it. I thought the heroine was annoying. I felt no connection with the characters. Honestly, they're very forgettable. I don't really remember half the book. It was just bad. So I didn't like that one. I listened to an audiobook, and I think that's the only reason I finished it. but it was just a horrible setup. The over-the-top klutzy heroine that needs a guy to rescue her, and she gets herself in those really weird, awkward positions, and it just gets old. Anyways, all right. I'm not going to go too deep into it. This is like the third video I filmed today, so my voice is kind of... So I am really excited for March, hoping I'll read a lot more this month. We'll see how the month goes. But, you know, it is what it is. I still had a great month for February to get 3 6 stars. Let me know what your guys' favorite book from the month was. If you read any of these and you have different feelings, whatever, leave me a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.